Hello and welcome to Hindsighting, where we normally discuss all the movies to win the Best Picture Oscar and try to figure out if this picture truly is the best or is time rendered a different verdict. Well, today, it's time for us to render some verdicts of our own. I'm Edward Clow. My guest today is an Emmy Award-winning producer and director. He directed Baby Shark's big movie for Nickelodeon and Paramount+. Alan Foreman, welcome back to Hindsighting.
Three-peat, baby.
Three-peat. Actually, this might be a four-peat.
Oh, that's right, because it's a two-part.
Yeah, but three-peat as of now, if we're keeping score.
All right.
Today we're not hindsighting a single movie, but an entire decade as we both run down our top 10 movies of the 80s. So, Alan, all season long, we've been talking about the 80s and how strong I think the 80s is. I don't have to convince you of this. You were in our Graham Up a Caper episode. This season has been double what season one was because we not only talked about an entire decade, we focused on 1981ers, and Our previous episode was our quote-unquote last one. I said in that episode that I'm going to be doing 81ers, some things we didn't get to, some things that I haven't seen. So those are going to kind of trickle up in the feed during the life of this podcast. But I'll briefly reiterate, my spiel on the 80s. We could talk about it. I just think it was such an incredible decade because every genre was really well served. I think this is the best decade for action movies ever. I think it's the best decade for comedies ever. I think it's a really strong decade for horror. It's a really strong decade for just drama, just adult dramas. And what's incredible is that most of these things, at least for most of this decade, are made by major studios.
Right.
Independent film is going on, and at the end of this decade, right at the end,
it starts to pick up
Spike
steam.
Lee and Jim Jarmusch and Soderbergh, and and going into the 90s. Obviously, when we talk about the 90s, we're going to be talking a ton about independent film. But for the most part, these things that we're talking about, these movies are from major studios. And that's kind of incredible given where we are now. So, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but just when you think of the 80s in movies, what do you think about? Broad enough question for
It's a pretty broad question. I would say mostly I think about it was kind of the era of home video rental.
Yeah.
So that's really what I think about the most. And we talked about it a little bit last time, but going to the video rental store and just wandering the aisles and seeing covers on the VHS boxes that you're like, I don't know what this is, but it looks cool.
Because the covers were paintings. I think we talked. I think you and I
there
talked
were a lot
about
of
this.
paintings. There were a lot of really interesting graphics. There
Yeah.
were, so I think mostly of, obviously the 80s is when I started first seeing movies in theaters because I was, we were born in the late 70s, so finally of age to go to a movie theater. But I guess what I think of the most is like coming home with a stack of like 3 or 5 VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we're doing tonight. We're just watching movies all night long.
That was definitely, that was definitely my childhood as well because it was very easy. And now that I'm a parent, I really appreciate how easy it was. My mother would take me almost every Saturday night, unless we were like all doing something, but she would take me like, 4 or 5 o'clock on a Saturday night, and I'd pick out 2 or 3 movies, like you said, and then I'd stay home on Saturday night. Sometimes my friends would come over. I don't want to paint this picture of me not having friends, but that was early film school, and I'll old man this. What was at the video store was you had that and you had cable. By cable, I mean HBO, Cinemax. There was there was the movie channel. I don't know if you remember the movie channel.
I do.
Yeah.
It was also the beginning of the times of being old enough to, have a TV in my own room.
Oh, I never did.
And then watching movies like super late at night, movies that were
so jealous.
Movies that I probably should not have been watching at such young ages. So, having those experiences, that was more like late 80s was when that happened, when I finally had access to that. But so for me, it's the VHS, the rentals, and cable, and finally having cable and watching movies.
Yeah,
with friends over at houses, having sleepovers with my cousin, stuff like that.
Yeah, and back then, just to be like painfully obvious about it, you really had to just hear about stuff like word of mouth. We were well pre-internet, and
it was Siskel and Ebert, or you open up the paper and you look at what's playing at the movie theater.
Right. Yeah, my father, I think I mentioned this before. My father, was not a cinephile, but he liked movies,
Mhm.
and he took me to movies because I think, again, as a parent, I realized this. I appreciate this more now. It was an easy thing for me to do. Meaning, like,
Right.
Ed will go see any movie.
Right.
And my sister pointed out late in my father's life that she said, Dad chose movies based on what time they were starting.
Right. Right.
And that it really explained the eclectic. Like, I saw a movie that did not come up in our 84 episode called Rappin'.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember that movie, Rappin'. I saw A Chorus Line, the movie.
Mhm.
I saw all these like random things, a lot of really great things too. But I mean, it was just like we went to the movies on a Saturday afternoon or whatever it was, and I don't remember ever asking, "Oh, what are we going to see?" It was he would tell me, it wasn't a secret,
Yeah.
and I'd sat down in some of these movies, and I was never bored. I like some things more than others,
Sure.
but it was just it's like you went to the movies with my dad. If there was something he really wanted to see, there were things, he was a Woody Allen fan and he liked like Michael Douglas and he liked
Mhm.
James Bond. And so there were things that like he would go see, but it was a lot of just like, and I didn't know this at the time. Oh, this is starting at 4:30. That doesn't start till 5,
Right.
whatever
right.
it was. And, so I can kind of appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, this whole season has been such a crazy nostalgia trip, even though all the movies that, the Best Picture winners, a lot of them I didn't see till I was older. 3 of them I never saw at all. So going into this,
Which ones were?
so I had never seen Chariots of Fire, I had never
Mhm.
seen Gandhi, and I had never seen The Last Emperor.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
those
Yeah.
3, had you seen those?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
of the 10, of the 10, I'll run them down.
Sure.
How many of these Best Picture winners have you seen? So Ordinary People, have you seen it? Or had you seen it?
Yes, I saw Ordinary People. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Chariots of Fire you'd
Yeah.
seen?
Mhm.
Gandhi you saw?
Mhm.
Terms of Endearment?
I think bits and pieces.
Okay, so you haven't seen
I don't
Terms.
think I've ever seen it all the way through.
Okay, Amadeus?
Yes.
Out of Africa?
Yeah.
Platoon?
Yes.
We already said you saw Last Emperor.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw Rain Man.
Yeah.
And then Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes.
Okay, so you went
Yeah.
9 and 1.
Yeah.
I was like 7 and 3.
And that was mostly because I think my mother, she,
Right.
I think I watched, I think she wanted to watch Chariots of Fire,
Chariots of Fire was a
And
gap for me. Yeah.
all those. So I think most of those movies were because my mother watched them.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't
It
think-
wasn't like I was like, I really want to go see Gandhi.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I talked about this a lot in the Gandhi episode, so I won't rehash it here. Gandhi and actually, the 3 that I hadn't seen were the ones in a way I was sort of most excited about because
Mm.
I knew very little about them.
Mhm.
I knew who Gandhi was, but I talked about this in that episode. If you heard it, I was very ignorant about a lot of just the facts. I didn't know that Gandhi
Oh.
got assassinated.
Yeah,
And that's how
same.
the movie
Yeah,
opens.
yeah,
I was like, oh,
yeah.
you got assassinated because
You're like,
he's
"Geez,
never mentioned.
spoiler."
Yeah. Well, they do right in the beginning, but he's never mentioned in that list of, JFK,
Right,
MLK,
RFK,
Lincoln,
yeah.
these people who were assassinated for political reasons. He's never on that list. Possibly
Should be.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a podcast about that list.
Okay. All right. So I tasked Alan with making a top 10 list of the 80s.
It's just so not fair.
This was really hard. No, this was hard for me. And this was much harder than my top 10 list of the 2000s, which is what ended
Right.
season 1. That was fairly easy. I mean, I did a little bit of hand wringing on the rankings here. This was a knife fight. This was really, really hard. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to preamble too much because we've going to have a lot to talk
I will say
about.
before we get into it, I will say
Please.
that I did not rank them in any particular order.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure that was something that we were going for.
I ranked mine 10 to 1, but you could do
Okay.
yours. But if you didn't do it that way, that's fine.
I did no particular order.
Okay. So how do you want to attack? All right. So let's get into it.
I mean,
So,
I can do. I
well, how do you want to attack your list?
mean, we could do it chronologically
okay.
from 80 to 89.
Okay.
That's kind of how it's ordered right
Okay,
now,
you-
but I don't know
Do
if
it the way you
that's-
have it. So yours. So let's clarify this. So you're saying that these are the 10 best movies, but you don't have them ranked 1 to 10.
Yes.
Okay. So let's
'Cause
do
I
it.
found that to be harder to do.
That's fine.
and
Look,
I
that-
copped out. Look,
okay.
look,
No, that's fine. You're still giving me 10 movies.
I pussed out on that one.
That's fine.
It's okay.
But you gave me 10 movies. I'm going to rank mine so we could do it different ways. So you had a hard time making this list. Tell me, without divulging what's on it, why was this so hard? Because I had some difficulties too.
Um, well, first of all, there are so many movies that are so I don't know, were so formative
Yeah.
for me during that era. And I think it's partly because, like we were just talking about, we were finally of the age to start really consuming media.
Right.
And you're at such influential phase of your life
Mhm.
during those years of growth. So the first thing I did was, and I'm assuming you went through a similar process, as I went through the releases for each year,
Yes.
and I narrowed it down to the ones that I think are really good movies,
Mhm.
and all the way up to super influential.
Right.
And then those lists for each decade were very long. And then I went through and bolded the ones that I thought were the standouts
Right.
uh, of that already, smaller bucket. And it left me with a bananas long list, like way more than 10. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah.
And then when I started sort of thinking about, like, okay, how the hell am I going to narrow this down to a 10 list? I was like, I got to give myself some criteria.
Mm.
So I kind of went with movies that I felt like had long lasting ripple effects in popular culture
Yeah.
and in cinema, and in genre. So those were kind of like my three, like, okay, narrow it down that way.
Mhm.
And I got it down to, I think I got it down to like 30.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can probably pull 10 out of these that I think are sort of like hit those benchmarks
Mm.
the best.
Yeah.
But it was still really, really brutal because, there's movies that
Yeah.
are in I left the other 20 in my honorable mentions list.
And we could do that at
And
the
I'm
end,
sure
by the way.
we can rattle through those.
Yes.
Um,
I'd like to
but
do that too.
but like going back and forth between that extra 20
Yeah.
and the top 10 was really, really challenging, because there are ones that I'm like, I could easily swap out
Yeah.
half of my top 10 for things that are in my honorable mentions. And so last night I was doing my final, like, last looks here.
Hair and makeup. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was sitting on the sofa with my wife Betsy, and I was going through the list, and boy, it spurred a few very heated debates about certain things that were on my list that she felt weren't as good as things that were in my honorable mentions
Really?
list. But I had to, like, stick to my guns and be like, but it's about, I really feel like I need to stick to these criteria. Yes, this thing that you're talking about, I totally agree with you. Great movie.
Yeah.
Certainly, maybe this filmmaker or that actor at their peak.
Yeah.
But I still feel like this other thing has longer legs. I think that was sort of like I think the deciding factor for me was, did this movie that I love deeply have a longer, deeper impact than this other one that's on the list? So
Yeah, I had a similar process. So, like, I think at the beginning of this season, I made a letterbox list of every 80s movie that I loved, liked, everything in between. And it was like 234 movies. And I think I
Yikes.
added
Yeah.
a couple as I watched some Best Pictures and some Best Picture nominees. So let's call it 245 or something. And then I got down to a list of like 30. And then I played with that list of 30. And if you go on my letterbox, you could see for 80 through 89, in those individual years, how I rank those movies. So just, and I think that was kind of helpful because I was able to start splitting hairs between, like, okay, I like this better than this, I like this better than this.
Right.
The things at the bottom of those year-end lists would never crack a top 30. But this is a tough decade because it's, again, there's so much nostalgia
Yeah.
wrapped up in it. There's so much formative, like, just formation of my tastes and my passions and things. And yeah, it was tough. And I think the 90s will be equally tough.
I agree.
I have the list. I have a working version of that list, but obviously I don't need we're not doing the
Right.
90s for a long time. But I almost feel like 80s by a hair would be even harder because I have 90s nostalgia, but I'm much older. That's 11 to 21 as opposed to, 1 to 11.
Right.
Age wise.
And like we talked about last time, it was also a time of a lot of, the industry was kind of flush, and they were like happy to
Yeah.
take chances and spend money on movies that
volume.
they would never make now.
Yeah, the volume was just so
Yeah.
high. It's funny because so many people have said this came up in our 86 episode because the 86 episode, um, which will air by the time this comes on, but in our Platoon episode, the second half of it was really just a referendum on 1986, and it was very similar to Amadeus, where it was just like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that came out in this one calendar year.
Ridiculous.
That's true of every year in the 80s, with the possible exception of 80 and 83, which aren't bad years, but the volume...
The list is a little shorter.
The list is a little bit shorter, the volume, but it's almost because 81 and 84 are so big, it's almost like, okay, they were getting ready for that without realizing it.
Right.
So, but every other year, I mean, I said... Yeah, I did 1981ers, and the main reason for that was nostalgia. I could have done 1982ers, 1984ers, 1986ers, 87ers, 88ers, and like I could have done that for every year in the 80s. I don't think I know I couldn't do that for the 2000s, and I could not prepare those. Like I couldn't come up with 10 movies that I liked in the year 2000. 4, maybe 5, but even in those 5, there'd be like 2 or 3 great ones and 3 that are like, oh, that's solid, that's good, that's something I like. It's 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. So yeah, this was tough. I've had my list locked for a long time, but I bet if you and I got back together in 6 months or a year, the list could shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that, there would just be some tectonic shift. And that's maybe true of...
I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah. I did my list 10 to 1. So my 10th favorite all the way to my first favorite. These are just 10. Your list is not ranked. Is that right?
No, it's not ranked.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just chronological. I just put them in chronological order. It was hard for me to put them in a 10 to 1.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So my list, just to be clear, for those playing along at home, my list is going to be 10 to 1.
And Alan cheated.
So Alan, give me your... So I'm going to ask for Alan's number 10, but it's not his 10th favorite. All of Alan's babies are... created equal.
They're
Is that right?
equally loved.
Equally loved. Okay, so let's get into it. Alan, let me have your number 10 movie.
All right, well, I'm going to start at the beginning of the decade in 1980, and with The Empire Strikes Back.
Great.
Which, I mean, outside of a couple of other very fantastic sequels, I think everyone can agree it may be the best sequel ever made.
Yeah.
And I think it's I was also thinking about like people or actors or directors or whatever at the top of their game, and I really think Empire Strikes Back is Star Wars at the top of its game. It has humor, it has drama, it has, I think, one of John Williams' best scores.
Yeah.
I think the special effects hold up.
Yeah.
Like the ILM kind of like hitting their stride.
Yeah.
The acting was really good. If they got a whole planet to have an emotional attachment to a small green puppet, like talk about great craft work. So for me, Empire Strikes Back is Star Wars at its best, and possibly the best sequel in a franchise.
Yeah, it's definitely on a list. I have a list on Letterboxd, not to keep pimping that, but I have thought about it as far as, part 2 is better. I think you're right that it's either Empire or Godfather 2.
Yeah.
Or maybe Aliens, as far as
those were the others that were in my thought process.
One, I'd throw 2 on there. I'll throw 2 on there. One I think people would agree with, one no one's ever heard of. I'd also throw For Much With Love, the second James Bond movie. That's more about being better than the first. Obviously, there's a ton of that. I'd also throw in there A Shot in the Dark, which is a sequel to Pink Panther, which is like a billion. I mean, Pink Panther's fun. A Shot in the Dark is just a masterpiece. But sticking with Star Wars, I think it's so interesting because Lucas, kind of goes upstairs and runs things. He makes himself executive producer. He crafts a story, but Irvin Kershner, who was his USC professor, he gives him the director's chair. And it's interesting because a lot of people, we think about Star Wars being George Lucas's, and I think it absolutely is. Even though he's not the director of Empire Strikes Back, he is the auteur's vision. But because Irvin Kershner only directed one Star Wars movie, he was offered Jedi and turned it down because he felt like it was just too close to the first one. He just felt like there wasn't enough new there. I often wonder, I give Lucas so much credit because I really feel like he played to his strengths and shored up his weaknesses. Like he got, Lee Brackett, who was a very famous writer, had written the first draft of the script and she died. And he brought in Lawrence Kasdan, who we've talked a lot about on this podcast. Particularly, we've done, 2 movies that he wrote as 81ers and mentioned him a couple other times. And I think that Lucas is so smart, particularly, and this is the best example of that. I was just like, okay, I'm really strong conceptually. I'm really strong at the administrative part of this. I've got a good vision, but I'm gonna have better control. It's gonna be a better movie if this guy directs it and this guy writes it, And he still has his hand on the till, but I feel like that's kind of rare. I can't think of a lot of other examples like that.
Yeah, if you look at the other movies that he directed, I mean, going even back to,
THX
and
Graffiti,
American Graffiti, which I love. I love those, but I just don't think he's as much of a craftsman. And I think with Empire, you have really excellent craftsmen plying their trades. The cinematography is gorgeous. Like, it's a beautifully shot movie.
Yeah.
And once he retook the reins for the prequels, they are not well crafted just from a artisanal perspective. Is that
Right.
I don't think that's his strong suit. So like you're saying, he allowed other people who he trusted and to do their jobs.
Yeah, and it was his decision because it wasn't like anybody said, "Oh, you're not directing." It wasn't like It wasn't like, "Oh, you can't direct the sequel to the highest grossing movie of all
he
time."
owned it, so he could have done whatever he wanted to with it.
So I think it's so fascinating that he took it upon himself. And what's interesting about Empire Strikes Back, and I thought about this way back in 1997 when they did all the special editions, it was the least fucked with.
It was. Yeah.
He did very. I mean, I really like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm not hardcore.
Yeah.
But I grew up with 4, 5, and 6, as did you. And there's been enough podcasts about how he ruined the first one and the third one, and I don't disagree with any of that. But I think it's interesting that I remember saying back in '97, because I went and saw all 3 of them, as I'm sure you did too. I was like, wow, like I asked my friend who was like hardcore, I'm like what's different? And he's like, very little. Like he fucked with it the least because it's the best one.
Yeah.
And the only other movie in that franchise that I've heard people say is the best is the very first one, which I don't agree with, but I do get it. Because the first one is a great movie, and I could see like, okay, it's the first one.
It revolutionized a lot of things,
right? But the second one is so great, and it's weird. It's a weird thing to say about a science fiction movie. It's just brought down to earth.
Yeah.
Because the relationships are so strong in it. Like, I mean, the scene. I mean, this is not a hot take, where Han's frozen in carbonite is so powerful.
It is. Yeah.
And it's not pushed.
Yeah.
It's not like it's that different from anything else. It's just a little bit different because you bought into the reality of the characters and in this world, and it's one of those things that's like, Lucas famously said, nobody wanted to make Star Wars because they didn't get it,
right?
And it's like, and it's about to be 50 years old next year,
right?
And it's like, it's worth repeating because I think everything is. Original ideas are just Star Wars that you haven't met yet. Like I understand not reading the Star Wars script and being like, I don't know what this is, but looking at his other work and obviously Alan Ladd Jr. did that. He was able, because he knew Lucas and he was able to sort of see what it could be. But yeah, that's a great.
I mean, not that there haven't been influential science fiction movies made earlier than this one, but I think the original Star Wars trilogy kind of opened up a wider lane for science fiction.
Yeah, and Lucas is so, I've talked about this a little bit in our Body Heat episode, even though he's not involved with Body Heat, but he kind of made Body Heat happen without him. He didn't produce it or anything. Lucas is just such an interesting person, and I think he's got such great philosophies on things. Like he said this incredible thing, I love to quote, on some documentary on the 2001 Blu-ray. He said this thing about 2001, which obviously is from the 60s, so it's not going to come up on my list. But he said what I thought was the smartest thing about 2001. He said, obviously this was a big influence on me. And he says, every sequence in 2001 is like a sunset because it's really beautiful and it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
And that's just the way of looking at it. I was like, that's brilliant. So I think Lucas has some shortcomings as a filmmaker, but I think he's just a fascinating and kind of noble person.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
yeah, I think so great pick. So my number 10, and these are ranked. My number 10 movie for my top 10 movies of the 80s is Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh, nice.
So
Uh-huh.
Michael Caine
Mhm.
said in one of his many great autobiographies that this was the most fun he ever had making a movie, and man, does it show. And I think this is really interesting is that this was 1 year after Jaws 4 and 2 years after he won his first Oscar, and that tells us that this was during what I call erratic quality paycheck Kane. So you and I are old enough to remember that Michael Caine and Gene Hackman were
Yeah.
in between like 1985 and maybe 1990 were in every movie.
Yes, yeah,
And those
yeah,
movies were of wildly divergent
yeah,
quality.
yeah.
Most of them were bad.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so that's how I got to know Michael Caine, that he was just this guy who was in every movie. And but I think that Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I think this is his best performance. I think this
Mm.
is like all the charm and elegant and the masterful comic timing, but it has some heart. I just think that Michael Caine's never been better. I'd say ditto Steve Martin. I think
Mhm.
this is my favorite Steve Martin
Ooh,
performance.
bold.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think the
okay,
fact that
okay,
well, we'll talk.
okay.
We'll throw that to the debate. I think the fact that this is a year after Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and a year
Mhm,
before Parenthood is astounding. That's
mhm.
such a great. I think in the '80s, he's one of those guys in the '80s who's, I won't say he doesn't put a wrong foot down, but like most of his movies are really good. He's doing a lot of great stuff with Carl Reiner.
Yeah,
He's really, I mean,
he has a string of great movies
string of
with
great
Reiner,
movies.
yeah.
I mean, we don't, we think about like Bill Murray and Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy and all these
Right.
people. I think Martin's definitely right in there. When I say this is the greatest decade for comedy, this is one of the reasons. But yeah, I think that Steve Martin again is just never been better in this. And this is one of those things where it's just a weird combination because like these are two guys who probably shouldn't be in a movie together. It's kind of like De Niro and Charles Grodin in Midnight Run.
Right.
And I made this point in my Raymond episode where I talked about this. It's like these two guys probably shouldn't be in a movie together, but the chemistry kind of works. It's just so opposite, even within the story itself. Because Kane, is this elegant. He looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
David Niven on purpose. This is a
yeah.
remake of a movie where it's David Niven and Marlon Brando. And from what I've read, that movie doesn't work because those two just don't have good chemistry. It's like two great actors that just don't go
They
together.
just clash too hard.
I mean, I haven't seen the original, but this is considered one of those remakes that's far better than the original, which is why it's probably a really good remake. I can't weigh in on that.
Yeah, I never saw the original.
Yeah, it's got a different name. I think it's called oh God, what is it called? I think it's called Bedtime Stories, something like
Oh,
that.
interesting. Okay.
It's Marlon Brando and David Niven, which is again why Kane looks like Niven with the haircut and the mustache.
Mhm.
I kind of wish these two had made another movie together, but I think it wouldn't have been as good as this. So I'm kind of like, you know what? It's good that we have this perfect one.
Sometimes one and done is better.
Yeah, I'm trying to resist that impulse the older I get of knowing that, like, maybe one is good. I also want to talk about Glenn Headley, who is also really great in this movie. And she's somebody who worked a lot and worked steadily, but it's an old saw on this podcast. She, kind of wasn't given all the shots I thought she should have, but she's really great in this. You and I talked last time we were together, we talked The Muppets.
Mhm.
And it's worth noting that Frank Oz directed this movie.
Mm.
And this isn't necessarily something that Frank Oz had done before. This is a little bit of a departure. He'd just done.
What did he do right
He did
before?
Little Shop,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Little Shop, and
Yeah.
Muppets Take Manhattan, and then Dark
Yeah.
Crystal. This is like his fourth movie, and this is not. This is not something I would have cast him for.
First movie without a puppet in it.
First movie without a puppet in it, yeah. And I think what's also interesting is that like he does it so elegantly. Like the DP is Michael Ballhaus, who shot a ton of stuff for Scorsese, and like 4 or 5 or 6, or I think, God, I mean, he's a ton of Scorsese
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
most notably Goodfellas, and I think that the look of this movie. This movie just looks like a real movie, and if it were done today, it would be done on streaming, and it would look like kind of a flavorless
it would
gruel,
look flat and boring.
flat and
Yeah.
boring and blown out, or like a screensaver.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't, And yeah, and the thing I love about this movie that's kind of a miracle is that this movie is really clever. It's really tightly scripted, but it's also highly improvised.
Yeah.
And I can't think of another movie like that because obviously the plot of this movie, it's a con artist movie, so you can't fuck around with the plot of this or it won't make sense. The script is really tight, but Steve Martin, so there's so much improvising going on. I think even Michael Caine, you can see in some scenes, he's not Steve Martin, but I think he's like kind of like going with things a little bit, particularly like
He's yes-anding.
Yes, Andy. Like the whole Ruprecht section.
Right.
And if you don't know what I'm
Forgot about
talking
that.
about, go see this
Yeah,
movie.
I haven't
That's
seen it for a while.
highly improvised. It had to have been. There's a scene in this movie that I love where Steve Martin's trying to remember Michael Caine's name. His name is Lawrence Jameson, and he's just like, his name is John Jefferson. His name is Jefferson.
Right.
And Frank Oz just let him riff.
Yeah.
And when he ran out, he like signaled him and then had the other actor say Lawrence James, So because I had this thing about comedies, if they're overly improvised and there's too many alt lines, it just becomes dull and it just becomes like a slam dunk contest. But there are a ton of great comedies in the 80s. I think this one is a miracle because it's elegant, it's improvised, but it's also really tightly scripted.
I love it. I haven't seen it in a very long time. I always love that movie. I mean, the one part that I always remember is when he asks to go to the bathroom. It's just always, it's always funny.
Well, in that
It's
same
always
scene,
funny. Yeah.
it's so funny in that same scene. So when I was a kid, I remember seeing this in the theater. And I think the movie's PG.
Yeah.
It's not really for 10-year-olds, but it's not like if a 10-year-old saw it, it's inappropriate. But like obviously, I couldn't appreciate as I got older and got into because this is also my favorite con artist movie.
Ooh.
This is I know it's another bold statement.
Bold. Okay.
Yeah, this is my favorite movie involving
laying it down.
Not just con movie, but movies about con artists too.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like The Grifters doesn't have a lot of cons in it, but it's about con artists. Yep. There's no long con in it. We see a long con, but it's as a flashback. I think you were talking about sort of like really evaluating these 80s movies,
right.
And this kind of hits that Venn diagram of something I really like, something I've always liked, but also just as the filmmaking of just like, okay, this really is.
Everything was firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and again, there's just so few comedies that you could say are this well written, or if they're funny, or like a lot of them just are like the last half hour is really dumb, or there's an extra half hour to like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Right. But you mentioned that scene about wanting to go to the bathroom. There's a line that Michael Caine has right before that scene where he's like, I'm sorry, darling. You were saying you don't think the poor should be allowed in museums. Like, the thing that I love is that Michael Caine makes this great point. They're competing to get money off this woman, Glenn Headley, and Michael Caine wants to back out because she's so virtuous. And he says, like, the women I take down are corrupt and wicked and stupid. I don't take from the virtuous. And I love that Michael Caine has this code. When you meet him, you're like, oh, this guy's just like a slick prick.
Slum bag. Yeah.
So this movie does also have a heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, I think the heart comes from the Caine character because the Steve Martin character is kind of heartless.
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny. But what would you, so you took umbrage with me saying this is my favorite Steve Martin. What would you,
oh my God,
what would you throw out? Or what things would you throw out?
I mean, the two that I loved probably the most growing up were Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Yeah.
And The Jerk.
Yeah. Both Carl Reiner.
Carl Reiner.
Yeah. I like The Man with Two Brains.
I love that one too. Yeah. All of Me. Like that whole.
Also Carl Reiner. Yeah.
That whole stretch right there.
Yeah.
But I also like, I do think Parenthood may be like kind of sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where, to your point of having that.
Right.
That dramatic edge and the heart, but also just like uproariously funny. Like,
yeah, I'd say Parenthood. It might be a better performance in that he's playing more colors, like he's playing a real person. Yeah. The zaniness is kind of dialed down. I just think this is my favorite use of like the goofy acid persona of Steve Martin. Yeah. The fact that like he's playing goofy in this, but like as a con, but he's also. Because he's playing an idiot in this, but he's doing it with like a lot of intelligence, if that makes sense.
But a lovable idiot.
Yeah, like he's not an idiot, like he doesn't understand anything. But like, there's another line, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have a long list ahead of us. But there's another line I love from Michael Caine that I also think about. He gives this long speech about how he tried to be an actor, a painter, a poet, and he realized he wasn't any good, and all he had was great taste. And he says, Freddie, I learned my limitations. You should know your limitations. You are a moron. And I think about that line all the time. Like it's just an elegant way of saying this guy's just a fucking moron. Idiot. So Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is my number 10.
I love it.
So Alan, what is the next movie on your list chronologically?
It's another 1980, The Shining.
Wow. Yeah. Great.
Like. Yeah. How do you even, what do you say? It's just, I know it wasn't entirely faithful to the book, and I know that Stephen King didn't like it, but I
Yeah.
mean, talk about Kubrick and Nicholson, and I mean, at their best, like uh, I don't think there's a wasted frame in that movie.
Yeah.
Every scene, it feels integral to the story, and just so many memorable moments, and a real touchstone for horror and thriller type movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the production design, the photography, the acting, like everything. Just so it still fucking creeps me out.
Yeah.
Like it still holds up as a creepy ass movie,
Yeah.
and it's really hard for a movie you've seen that many times uh, to still have that effect. And also just like huge impact on the culture and the zeitgeist in general. Just how here's Johnny. Like
Yeah. Everything about that movie. It's interesting because that was, with the exception of Spartacus, the only time, and I'm going to put big quote marks on this, the only time that Kubrick played it safe. Because Barry
Mhm.
Lyndon, which is a great, great movie, was not successful. It was critically
Yes,
successful,
yeah.
won 4 Oscars, but it was not a hit.
It's a fucking weird movie.
Yeah. I like Barry Lyndon a lot, but
I do too.
it was very sort of calculated. He said,
Mhm.
okay, he wanted to do something that was IP, and Stephen King was really becoming popular. Carrie had just come out. Because I think he starts making this in like 77, or the deal's done in 77. Because this was another infamously long shoot. Not as long as Eyes Wide Shut, but
Right.
but I think it was over a year, and at least for the adults. I mean, I would imagine even Kubrick had to work around a child who was getting bigger.
Yeah.
The Shining is one of those things that, like its reputation, it was always liked. I think it was a reasonably big hit. I think critically, some people turned their nose up on it, but like I think The Shining, more than any other Kubrick movie, well, let's say more than any other Kubrick movie, but Eyes Wide Shut, also for different reasons, has a huge growing reputation.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is because Jeffrey Epstein is all over that movie.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that in another podcast. But The Shining, I feel like, is the one where, for a lot of people, it probably would crack like 2 or 3 top Kubrick. Where does it rank for Kubrick for you? I mean,
for me, it's
you have to do all of it. Is it number 1? Is it number 2?
It's in the top 3. I would say the top 3 for me are probably 2001, Shining, and Full Metal Jacket.
Okay. Yeah.
But also got to give some love to Shelley Duvall. Like she was fantastic. So naturalistic.
Yeah.
In the first third of the movie, and then when things start going south, like she really played the terror.
Yeah. She's amazing
really
in
well.
this.
She's so good.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've seen the documentary, right, that his daughter made, which is incredible.
Yeah.
It's really one of the if people don't know what we're talking about, on The Shining DVD, Blu-ray, whatever it is. I think there's a 4K now.
Yeah.
There's like a 20-30 minute documentary that Vivian Kubrick made, and it's really one of the few things where we see Kubrick just on the set. It's pretty raw. Not all of it's flattering. But you really see that he just showed up and was like, how am I going to shoot this? You see him just making this movie by the seat of his pants. And I think that's what he set up. That's why he took so long to make movies, that he had that arrangement with Warner Brothers for the last 4 or 5 of his movies that, and that's not how most filmmakers work, but he had the freedom to just kind of like figure things out and rewrite things. You also see him rewriting the script,
on the
fly. And it's just such an incredible way to work, especially at that scale, because it's not a small movie.
No.
Those are all constructed sets that he's on. And it's a huge movie for, I think I talked about this in our 80 episode, just the Steadicam. Like the Steadicam had been
really
in Rocky 1.
In that one.
Yeah, but Garrett Brown, so much of that movie is the Steadicam. And like, let's see what the Steadicam can do. It's almost like a character in the movie, but it's never gratuitous.
No.
And that movie is, it's so creepy. My daughter has been asking me to watch it, and I've said no. And I've shown her other scary things, but it's not even so much that the horror things. It's just the fact that, like, a friend of mine had a great take on The Shining. He said that, like, you could almost get rid of the ghosts, and it's really a movie about domestic abuse.
Oh yeah,
because he hates his wife and kid right from the beginning.
So much.
It's not really him. People say, "Oh, it's about Jack Nicholson going crazy." Like, he's already pretty fucking crazy when he gets there.
Yeah, he's a horrible person.
Yeah. And that's what I like about the movie, is that, like, a lot of horror movies, including ones that I like, um, there's a status quo of like, here's suburbia and everything's nice, and here's this idyllic town, and these are in movies that I really love, and then something goes wrong, and The
Right.
Shining,
Right.
you know, from the opening shot and the music, you're just like, something's fucked up here. Like this
Yeah.
is just like these people are not okay.
No, the family's already in crisis from
Yeah.
the beginning.
Yeah, and yeah, it's yeah, The Shining is such a, I mean, yeah, we could do an entire podcast just on The
Yeah.
Shining, but yeah, it's so interesting again that Kubrick, again, it was his only kind of commercial flex,
Mhm.
but because he's Kubrick.
Right.
And I've never read the book either. I've read other
I
Stephen
haven't
King
read the
books
book.
that I really
no.
like.
I watched the miniseries that came out
Right,
in the
97.
90s, or but yeah, I never read the book.
Yeah, and I guess I can understand why Stephen King was upset, but I mean, he had to have known if someone like Stanley Kubrick was going to take on his material, he was going to have to make it his own.
Yeah, he's not going to do a page for word adaptation.
Yeah, and I don't think that was ever in the cards. Or
No.
maybe he thought, oh, I'll just do this. I mean, you know what's funny? And I'm speculating here. He might have thought, oh, this will be easy, and I'll shoot it in 3 months, and it just
spiraled.
It just spiraled as he got
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, and yeah, The Shining. Do you know the Taschen book that came out?
No.
There's a Taschen book. Matt has it, and I actually got it too. I haven't read it yet. It's not like what it's physically not that big, but it's like this thick. It's like as thick as a Bible,
Jeez.
and it's about the making of it. And I think it was written by Lee Unkrich from
Okay.
Pixar.
Yeah.
So you should definitely check that out.
All right.
Because it's
Going
like
on the list.
it's like every day, every little thing. I haven't read it yet, but Matt Weiner's been reading it, and it's literally like a Bible.
All right.
And it's got pictures of the yin yang, and yeah. So The Shining, I don't think we have to stand for The Shining, but I mean, yeah, it's. I agree. Like every time I watch it, I never get used to the. I might know where the jump scares are,
Sure,
but I never get used to the oppressive bleakness of it. It
Yeah.
always gets inside me in a
Yeah.
way few other horror movies do.
Agreed.
Definitely my top 10 horror
Agreed.
movies, which I talked about.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is The Color of Money.
Ooh.
This is always dismissed as minor Scorsese, which I find madness because I think this is the best example of an auteur being plugged into IP. But I think people don't think about it that way because people might not remember that
I don't
this
think
is.
about it that way either.
Yeah, but it's a sequel to The Hustler.
Yeah, to The Hustler. Yeah.
It's a Lega sequel. It might
Yeah.
be the first one of those. You know, it's like Top Gun Maverick. This is the
Right.
same thing. It's like decades later, and it's the same character coming back. Yeah, what's cool is that Paul Newman was such a fan of Raging Bull, speaking of 1980,
Right.
that he called Scorsese up and said, you know, do you want to do The Color of Money, which was based on a book. But what's funny is that I read the book years
you?
ago. The book is in name only. If you want to know how different the book The Color of Money is from the movie,
Yeah.
the Tom Cruise character is not in the book.
Well, okay.
I can stop right there. It
Yeah.
is literally just the title. It is nominated for adapted screenplay. It is an original screenplay, but for the fact, I guess it would still be adapted because it's the same
because
character.
of the characters.
Yeah, but the book is 180% different.
Wow.
But I digress.
Yeah. I guess I forgot that Scorsese did that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was actually, this is a good segue.
Because it doesn't feel very in his stylistic pocket.
I disagree, and I'll tell
Really?
you why.
Okay.
I disagree, but I'll make my first point.
Go ahead.
What I said about The Shining, I think actually is more true of Color of Money in that he wanted to make The Last Temptation of Christ that fell apart. He did After Hours, which was a small movie that kind of recharged his batteries. There was a conscious effort on his part to do a big studio movie. This was Disney. It was Touchstone. He'd done stuff that got picked up by big studios, but he had never done a movie with this big budget. I don't know what the budget was, but it was like, it was a big tentpole movie. And the timing of getting Tom Cruise after he made Top Gun, but before it came out, was just really, really lucky. I think he would have done it anyway, but apparently he was making Top Gun and got the call, hey, do you want to do a movie with Paul Newman and Martin Scorsese? He was like, fuck yeah. And this comes out 4 months later, so he's got an old Hollywood star and like the brightest new star. And this was up until I think Aviator, his highest grossing movie. No, until Cape Fear. This was the highest grossing Scorsese movie. And because of this, he gets to make Last Temptation of Christ.
Budgeted, by the way, at $14.5 million.
Okay. So not even that high.
No.
So lower than I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, Alan just pulled that up. And I think this is we were talking about the Steadicam with The Shining. Another
Mhm.
segue. Thank you, Alan. Is there's an incredible Steadicam shot in this movie that isn't talked about. There's a scene, I don't know if you haven't seen it in a while. There's a
Been a
scene where
long
Tom
time.
Cruise is basically beating this guy in a pool game, which is tremendously stupid because they're supposed to be hustling him, and Tom Cruise is just throughout the movie
He's just
really
showing off.
showing
He's yeah,
off, and he's
yeah.
not supposed to,
Right.
because he's like the best player ever, and Newman is like, we gotta hustle these guys. And
Right.
if you kill them in the beginning, no one's gonna come near you with a nickel.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where Cruise does exactly that, and there's this scene. It's a Steadicam shot, and it's circling around this table while Werewolves of London is playing, and Cruise is kind of dancing around the table with his cue, and he's
Right.
hitting every single shot. And because it's a Steadicam shot,
Can't
you know
fake
it's
that
him
shit.
making
Yeah.
every single
Yeah.
shot. And this, to me, is way more impressive than hanging off skyscrapers and airplanes. And that shit's cool, but this is like the best example of Cruise's sort of physical grace, because he learned how to play pool for the movie. He and Newman do all their own shots, meaning
Right.
except
right.
for one. There was one shot where they had a pro do it, where a ball skips over another ball.
Oh, yeah.
And it's I mean, you can't tell, but like that's the only shot that's the only thing that like they couldn't do. They got a professional trick shot artist to do it. So you see them doing all their shots and the camera following the ball from
I
it's
forgot about all. I mean,
the-
I remember the shots that are circling the table, but I
Right.
don't remember him
so that Steadicam shot is
making the shots
yeah.
during the course of that.
Yeah, and I think and I also want to talk really quickly about Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Oh, yeah.
Who's Oscar nominated here. Newman wins the
Yeah,
Oscar for
I
this.
love her.
She's nominated. We kind of lost her once the 90s got rolling, but like this and Scarface and The Abyss just showed that she could really go head to head with anyone. She's also in a movie called Class Action with Gene Hackman in the early 90s. And she could just, so it's like Pacino, Newman, Hackman, and Ed Harris, who's closer to her age, she could just get in the ring and fight with anyone.
Yeah.
And, she was
I
just
had such a crush on her.
yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and she was really cute too. But I recently came to the realization, because I really, we're talking about ranking the 80s movies. I also rank my favorite directors' movies.
Oh.
And the only Scorsese movie I like better than this one is Goodfellas.
Interesting.
And I think that this movie ran so Goodfellas could soar. Because I think his use of music, the rapid fire editing, the slick camera work, I feel like there's more Goodfellas in this than there is in even like Mean Streets.
Interesting.
I really feel like this is him getting those muscles with material he wasn't maybe all that connected to. He did say it was a paycheck movie. I don't think he had a bad experience. I think he's proud of the movie, but this isn't something that he developed for years and years. This was like, which is what he wanted. He wanted to be hired on as a director. This is really only one or two times he does that his entire career, especially after this point. He doesn't have to do
He
this
wants
kind
to
of
make
thing anymore.
movies that he wants to make, ultimately.
Right. But I feel like as far as like IP, as far as taking a studio job, I really don't think this is a better movie than this in those circumstances. And I mean, yeah, if this movie were made today, it would be stuck on streaming. It would be at 30% of its strength. There'd just be a lot of meddling hands. So The Color Money, it's just been kind of forgotten. And I think it's crazy given who the cast is and who the director is. So that's my number 9.
I love that choice. It makes me want to rewatch it. I remember liking it when it came out, and I'd maybe seen it once or twice since, but that's it. But I would love to give it a deeper dive.
You should. And what's sad, just to rant for a second, there is a Blu-ray, but it's an infamously bad transfer.
Oh.
And I've been waiting for Criterion to do it. And the only reason I'm putting my hopes in that is because they've done so much Scorsese.
Right.
They did Mean Streets and After Hours in 1 year. They did The Irishman. They did Killers of the Flower Moon, which is coming out next
if you're
month.
listening, Criterion.
Criterion. And they've done a lot of like Disney shit. They've done like Armageddon and The Rock.
Get your heads out of your ass.
Yeah, this is like the one I was waiting for After Hours. You did a bang up job with that. Color of Money, Color of Money, Color of Money. It's yes. This is now the
All right, now Color of Wine.
Color of Wine is red.
Because when I'm here,
yes,
Ed and I are enjoying a little glass of wine.
Which irks my wife a little bit. Nothing against Alan, but she's like, "You drink red wine with him?" So, Alan, what's your number 8 chronologically?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Fantastic choice.
I mean, you get you get the best of Spielberg and Lucas together.
Yeah, you really do.
Probably one of Harrison Ford's best performances at his most Harrison Ford.
Absolutely,
and like kind of, I feel like you can see the ripples of the adventure genre for many years to come with movies like The Mummy and what was it, National Treasure,
Yeah.
and even like the Jumanji movies. Like there's a long,
Yeah.
it has really long ripple effect, and then becomes such a huge cultural thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I just look, it was it's one of my favorite photographed Spielberg films as well.
Cinematography, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just so beautifully photographed right from the get-go. I love that you don't really understand who this character is. He's mysterious. He's maybe a little um, scary. He maybe is villainous in a way. You don't really know. And and again, the score also another amazing score. And the effects are great too. Like it just everything about it, I feel like is just great craft work.
Yeah. We did a 1981er on Res of the Lost Ark,
Mm.
which is coming out next week as we're recording this.
Mm.
That's next week is Res of the Lost Ark, which was a little bit of a cheat because
Yeah.
it was but it was the biggest movie of the year. And I'll add on to what you said. Lawrence Kasdan wrote the script,
Right. Yep.
and
Kasdan again.
I think it again. It's sticking with Lucas first. I think it's like Star Wars. It's another great example of like how strong he is conceptually.
Right.
Because the story, which I know is Spielberg wanted to direct a Bond movie and either couldn't get the meeting or Cubby Broccoli said, I only work with British directors, which used to be true. An American hasn't directed one until the last one.
Right.
And Lucas was like, well, I have a character who's kind of like James Bond. But what I love about Indy, and this is true for more or less all 5 of the movies, is because Lucas and Spielberg are, and I mean this with respect, kind of square.
They're such nerds.
They're such nerds. There's
okay.
like no sex part
Yeah.
of the movie. In fact, there's a
Yeah.
scene in Raiders early on where he's in a robe, and in the scripts, or maybe they shot it, he was supposed to have just had a woman over, and they took that out. Like he was supposed to be kind of a playboy,
Right.
and that was either not shot or cut out. And I think that's smart. I mean, he has like a love interest in every movie,
Yeah.
but that's different. He's not a sex character.
No.
So you obviously see the influence of Bond over it. But yeah, I think Raiders, which is my favorite of the 5.
Yeah, mine as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I watched it recently because we covered it on this show a couple weeks ago. Or I guess maybe a month ago at this point. Whatever. We covered this season, Raiders of the Lost Ark. But yeah, it's never lost any of its edge.
No.
It's never. I'll tell a story about Raiders. I think I told this in the 81 episode, but that's the last movie that I watched with my father.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So my father, the last time I saw him, I didn't know it was the last time. My father had, lost his short-term memory. So watching a movie wasn't really in the cards. And my mother said, why don't you watch a movie? And I said, well, he can't really follow a movie. And I went on Netflix and I saw that the indie movies were on there. And I was like, I bet this will be good. And it was a great movie. It's a great movie to watch with somebody who, God forbid, is in that condition, or a child, because every set piece is like its own movie.
Right.
And I think this is a good thing. I think Raiders is like a ride, and some people say that negatively. I think that's a good thing because my dad said that scene in Nepal when the bar's on fire. My dad's like, "Oh, this is an exciting movie," and he couldn't remember what happened maybe 2-3 minutes before, but he was still able to enjoy the movie sequence to sequence or scene to scene. And I don't think that's true of almost any other movie. You can't enjoy a lot of movies that way if you don't know what's going on out of context, or you couldn't enjoy it in the way it's meant to be. And I think Raiders, I'm sure that's not how Spielberg. Well, it is kind of how he conceived it because obviously
it's based on serials. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting that they were coming off. Lucas was coming off the Star Wars movies. He just made Empire, and that his concept for this is so tethered to reality, except for like what my friend Dave calls the magic at the end.
Right.
Like it's a realistic movie, heightened, but it's on our planet. It's our world. A crazy thing that I saw is that Raiders is set 45 years before it came out, and it is now 45 years since Raiders. Yeah. So it's 90 years since Raiders has been set.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing to think
wild.
about. Yeah. I mean, it's and what's nice about Raiders is that and this is true of Empire also, is that it was appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
it was a hit, but also Raiders was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't like this thing about like that assholes like me usually like, oh, but they didn't get it, man. Like they didn't understand, man. You know, like
no, everyone appreciated it.
yeah, it's never there's never been a Raiders backlash. There's never been a thing of like, oh, that was good for its time. Like it was like frozen in greatness. You know who's a huge fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark? You were talking about the cinematography. David Lean loved Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think he kind of like forged a friendship with Spielberg, and I just think that speaks so well of Lean because yeah, it's in Tunisia. There are these vista shots, but like pace wise, it's nothing like his movies because it's so breakneck. And my problem with a lot of Lean movies is that I find them too languid. And we talked about Passage to India in this season, but yeah, I mean that's yeah, I mean it's such an important movie for this decade because that's kind of, I mean, in our Chariots episode, I think Mike Moskowitz said that like that's when the 80s starts. Is like with Raiders. The 80s as we think about it, like blockbuster,
right. The big
Spielberg.
summer blockbusters. And,
yeah, and it's a big movie for Spielberg because, you know, he's coming off, you know, he makes Jaws and Close Encounters, which are great movies. But 1941 is a bomb. But the problem is that 41, those three movies, Jaws, Close Encounters, and 1941, all went over budget. And so it was like the party was over with 1941. So he
needed a win.
He needed a win. He also needed a win that didn't cost a lot of money. And since 1941, he's never gone over budget. I mean, I don't know up to the penny, but he's never made like a movie that's like, this movie's out of control budget wise. He started producing movies like the very next year, like Poltergeist and things like that. So he kind of like grew up, not his tastes, but he kind of became like a more responsible adult in a way that a lot of filmmakers like Friedkin and Cimino were sort of flaming out because you just couldn't trust those guys with budgets, regardless of what you think of them as filmmakers. It's like that Boogie Nights thing. It's like, oh, the fucking 80s, party's over. And Spielberg was really, really one of the few guys to like go into that decade. And I mean, Steven Spielberg really is probably the one or two of the defining voices of the 80s. When you think of the 80s,
oh, for
as
sure.
far as like, not just as a director, but as a producer too, because he produces Goonies and Back to the Future and Gremlins and Inner Space and Roger Rabbit, you know, so like he's the first filmmaker I'd ever heard of. I didn't know what Steven Spielberg presents that it meant that he wasn't directing also. I thought he just made every movie that I went and saw as a kid. I mean, did you have a similar thing? I didn't know what he looked like or anything. I just thought he was the only filmmaker. He's the only filmmaker I knew by name until I was like 10.
That's probably true for me as well. I'm trying to think of if there were any other directors that I was really aware of.
You were a kid? Probably not.
Probably not. Because,
Brian De Palma said this great thing in the Spielberg documentary. He says he's the most famous filmmaker in the world, and that's
I mean, it's
probably still true. Him or Nolan now. Nolan's
is
probably up there now, but still.
But as far as household name goes, I mean, E.T. hit at a perfect age for us as kids to be like.
Yeah, that's his next movie after this.
Yes, his next one after this, huge.
I mean, he is his run in the 80s is unbelievable. So it's time for number 8.
All right, what do you got for number 8?
So number 8, actually is kind of a perfect segue in a way. It's not a Spielberg movie, but my number 8 movie, more than anything else on this list, I really remember seeing this movie for the first time, which is odd because I didn't see it in the theater. I just had this vivid memory. I was at my friend's house and his dad had like a home office and we sat on the floor and like watched it on like a little TV. I don't know why that memory stuck with me, but it always has. And I think it's hard for some people to distinguish movies made in the 1980s from 80s movies.
Interesting. Okay.
But an 80s movie might be seen as something lesser, but my number 8 pick, which is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, is both. And I just talked about how one of the defining voices of the 80s was Steven Spielberg, but the other one was John Hughes.
John Hughes, yep.
And I think that...
oh my God, many John Hughes movies.
Right. No other filmmaker besides Spielberg put a bigger stamp on this 10 years. So in just under 2 years, he makes 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science, and this. And he also produces Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful... Again, like Spielberg, he's starting to produce things that he's not directing. So, and this is in a much tighter...
Uncle Buck as well, yeah.
Yeah, right, Uncle Buck, all this stuff, and Home Alone, and he's really becoming like this sort of industry. But I think that Ferris Bueller's Day Off is, in a walk, my favorite of any John Hughes product. Anything he wrote or directed or produced. And I think this is such a huge leap forward, technically speaking, because Tak Fujimoto is the DP. Paul Hirsch is the editor.
Yeah.
He really gets outside in this movie. Like he really Breakfast Club, as it's supposed to be, is in this library, in this school.
Yeah.
16 Candles is kind of around this little town. Here he gets into Chicago, where he's from, and I think he makes Chicago look at least more beautiful than it's ever looked in any other movie. There's a lot of great movies that take place in Chicago. 2 or 3 in this decade. Thief, The Untouchables,
Right.
both are Chicago, both are the 80s. But I feel like he makes Chicago just look like this beautiful, almost like playground, which is how Ferris would see it.
Right.
And I think Matthew Broderick is kind of perfectly cast. There were other names they were talking about, like Cusack and Robert Downey, who would have been interesting in the part, but I think Matthew Broderick is so
he's perfect.
It's so perfect because he's such a goody two shoes.
Yeah.
And like John Hughes, if you ever get a chance to listen to the commentary that he did on this movie, he didn't do that a lot, but he did it for this movie. He says,
"No, I haven't heard it."
Yeah, it's on one of the DVDs.
Yeah.
You can probably find it online too. But he says this great thing about the opening of the movie is he says, "We're seeing Ferris at 8 years old." Like the way he's talking, because he kind of talks in that baby voice. He's like, this is exactly the same shit he's been pulling since he's 8 years old, and his parents are falling for it almost 10 years later. So this is, it's not I wouldn't say it's Matthew Broderick's best performance. It's certainly up there. I would say that would probably be something like Election would be that for me. Different movie.
I'm a Biloxi Blues guy myself.
Yeah, I like Biloxi Blues a lot also. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Actually, perfect segue. Alan Ruck was in Biloxi Blues with Matthew Broderick on stage.
Right, on stage.
And that's why he got this role.
That's right.
And I feel like he provides a real emotional center that the best John Hughes movies has. You could ding this movie by saying that the character Sloane isn't as well drawn as the other two, but I also think that
it's really more about, their friend. It's not about Sloane, really. It's about Ferris.
It's not, but she's not regressive, and there's none of the icky sexual politics that are in those other movies of his.
Yeah.
Even the great ones.
Yeah.
There's nothing like making light of sexual assault or anything. I mean, these things just haven't aged well. I don't think he's the only one.
No.
This movie, unless I'm just nuts, and I also just have to be honest, Mia Sarah is one of my first on-screen crushes. I mean, every guy wanted Sloane Peterson to be his girlfriend. I mean, she's just
very cool.
It's just very cool and very stunningly beautiful. This was the last movie as a director that he did that was a high school movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like his next movie as a director is Plane, Trains, and Automobiles, movies I
Right,
love.
That's right. I
But
love that movie too.
Yeah, but there's nothing to do with high school.
No.
It's a real left turn. And at least as a director, he kind of leaves high school here. And I think he leaves on kind of a high note. So this is, I think, a lot of people's stereotypical perception of 80s movies. They think about Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, whatever it is. But this is the best of those. And I think this is his best movie. So that's my number 8.
Interesting. It's maybe one of my wife's favorite movies.
Oh.
And we had quite a debate about whether that should be in my top 10 or not, which I won't divulge how that ended.
Okay. So I'm on better terms with your wife right now.
You are 100%. But she has the T-shirt that Cameron wears, the green green T-shirt with the medical symbol on it, and she, one of her favorite quotes is "I'm dying. You're not dying. You're just bored." Or
Yeah.
And I love this movie also. It was John Hughes was, so influential during the 80s.
Yeah. Have you read the book You Couldn't Ignore Me If You Tried?
No.
You should check that book out. It's mainly about Hughes, but it's really about the Brat Pack generation. So they cover St. Elmo's, which he's not involved in. But what's interesting is that John
St.
Hughes,
Elmo's is such a weird fucking movie.
Sorry,
Sorry, anyway,
it is. No, I'm a fan of it, but it's
so am I.
St. Elmo's is not on my list,
no.
but I watched it recently. In fact, my friend got the 4K. My friend Brian.
Yeah.
And we watched it here,
Amazing.
and like 2 months ago. St. Elmo's is but if you're at all interested in this era, You Couldn't Ignore Me If You Tried is, I'd say, 80% about John Hughes. But what this book talks about, which is so interesting, is that John Hughes, in really like a 2-year period, became so powerful. He had his own record label, which is like all these like British bands, like Simple Minds, all these people that he used in his movies. Like he just put their stuff out. Like he really.
I actually have a record collection. I think it's a 4 or 5 LP collection of music from his movies.
It might be from his label.
Probably from his label.
But it's really cool. But they talk a lot about the music because there's, and I think you taught me this. There's like early ska in this movie, and like Dream Academy and all this stuff. Like a lot of the 80s music that I really like kind of comes from John Hughes movies, not
Mhm.
exclusively, but like just the British bands and like
Yeah,
the
he
kind of
was
soulful.
showcasing some really interesting stuff.
And he's like 35 years old,
Yeah.
but he really was tapped into, because you always had like teenage movies, like, Fast Times I think is like kind of a step. He's not involved in Fast Times. That's
Right.
like kind of a stepping stone.
Yeah.
But Fast Times is just so different than even 16 Candles 2 years later.
Very different tonally.
Yeah, and I just feel like he had such a ear for how teenagers really talked and felt,
Mhm.
which is just evidence because they love these movies.
Yeah.
I think if like a 35-year-old or 40-year-old tried that now, you just have to have like, I don't know. I just thought he was a real unicorn and a really fascinating guy, like really kind of was reclusive in the last few years of his
Yeah.
life and just a fascinating man. Anyway,
Well, I like your point too about the way he made Chicago look like a playground.
Yeah.
And he really did.
yeah, because every time we see Chicago in other movies,
it's a little gritty and
it's gritty,
yeah.
it's like crime written, and that's
Yeah.
look,
And look,
that's
it's-
true.
There's some truth to that.
There's some truth to that. But I mean, like, you can make any city look beautiful or look dangerous. And I think that just those shots where they're driving into Chicago, those aerial shots of it.
Mhm.
Again, it's not like it's one thing to fly a helicopter around, but the fact that he's using Beat City, that
Yeah.
song, and I just remember my mother was from Chicago and I had been to Chicago maybe a year before, for the first time, maybe a year before. And every time I'm in Chicago, I was there 7-8 months ago. I always had that like Beat City now.
Yeah.
It's just it's just such a character because these kids live in the burbs, so it's like, oh, we're gonna go into the city, and in this movie it's not New York, it's Chicago. I don't know. I just think it's a great Chicago movie.
I agree.
Not
love-
a take Chicagoans I think would fight me too hard on.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So-
Easy win right there.
Yeah. So what is your number 7 chronologically?
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Got to go with Blade Runner.
Yeah. Jesus.
Um,
I mean,
it really set the tone for, I think, gritty science fiction production design.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of Ridley Scott at one of his peaks. Alien, coming off of Alien, which is like maybe my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, okay. Well, luckily it didn't come out in the 80s.
Didn't come out in the 80s.
Missed this list by 1 year.
Missed this list by 1 year.
Okay.
But
Aliens, your favorite movie of all time?
it might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Aliens. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It has all these things that I love. But so does Blade Runner, and I always feel like I return to Blade Runner pretty regularly.
Do you have a favorite cut?
Yeah, I go with what's the cut I go with now? I think I stick with the director's cut now.
The most recent one.
The one that came out
In 07?
Yeah, in 07. Yeah.
Me too. Okay.
Although I do find the voiceover hilarious.
Well, Scott Frank in our 82 episode, he preferred that version, the original
Interesting.
version.
Yeah,
'Cause I highlighted Blade Runner in our
It's
I
a-
spotlighted the production design.
Yeah.
So
The
go ahead.
production design, I think it really had such a heavy influence on pretty much every dystopian
Yeah.
science fiction movie that came out after it. Like
Yeah.
it's just, you can see its DNA in
Yeah.
pretty much everything,
Yes.
and that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, yeah, it's not the most even, but and and speaking of like some like questionable sexual things,
Yeah.
but I just love that it's so high concept.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't beat Rutger Hauer's soliloquy there.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great idea. And
Yeah.
it's just beautifully photographed,
Yeah.
and like, post-apocalyptic futuristic noir is
Yeah.
I'm into that shit.
Yeah. Blade Runner is, I'll put it maybe less eloquently, every sci-fi movie in the last almost 45 years has looked up the ass of Blade Runner. At least things set in the future.
Yeah.
I've always said, don't set things in the future because you're not going to do it as well as Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Not that Blade Runner got anything right in
No.
2019, but I don't think that's the point. I
No.
think the only way to do it is if you do Back to the Future 2, which I now realize was like
Yeah.
a joke.
Right.
That they weren't trying to predict the future. They just made a lot
They were
of
having a
jokes about
goof.
it.
Yeah.
They were having a goof, and I took it as very literal at 11 years old. Oh, no, this is
Right.
what it's going to be like.
Right.
But yeah, I think that it's probably the first line of Ridley Scott's obituary, that or Alien, and the
Yeah.
fact that he does, and those. I mean, you could argue whether Alien is sci-fi or horror. I'd say it's
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, I think, is. I mean, to my opinion, and I'm not an expert. There's three. I mean, there's 2001.
Yeah.
There's Star Wars and there's Blade Runner. The fact that Star Wars and Blade Runner had the same leading man is kind of incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
And that Raiders of the Lost Ark and Blade Runner have the same leading
Yeah.
man. And everybody knows that maybe younger viewers don't know Blade Runner bombed when it came out.
It did. It was, not
but
do
it
well.
wasn't the movie that we're talking about now.
Mm-mm.
Like a lot of times they're director's cuts. Blade Runner is definitely the best director's cut. And what I mean by the best is that it's so different. Because I remember seeing on VHS the first one
Sure.
and being
Yeah.
kind of bored by it,
Yeah.
but thinking it looked cool. Because
Yeah.
it is Oscar nominated for production design, because you can't fuck that up with a
No.
bad cut of the movie.
Mm-mm.
So it was appreciated by at least that branch of the Academy, that this was just undeniable, like this vision. But in '92 they put out a director's cut.
Yeah.
And
I went to see that in the theater.
I didn't see anything. I think I
remember that
rented it or something,
Yeah.
but I was like, wow, this is really different.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no voiceover.
Right.
The ending is different. The tone is different. I can't think of another example where the director's cut is that different. Usually it's like, oh, we added 2 minutes, or like this ending is a little bit different.
We didn't
It's a
have
scene,
before.
right?
Yeah.
This is, I don't, except for maybe the Magnificent Ambersons. We never got a director's cut of that. That's like the only thing I could think of off the dome where a director could say, like, this was not the movie I intended. This was taken from me, or whatever the circumstance was. I mean, he didn't get the movie taken from him, but he had to change a lot of stuff. It's only his third movie, but yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, I mean, Blade Runner. I agree with some of the unevenness. I mean, it's definitely uneven in places, but it's such an immersive experience.
Mhm,
It's it's weird because it's kind of a cold movie, but I find it really emotional. And the Vangelis score, I didn't love the Vangelis score to Chariots of
love it,
Fire,
yeah.
but for the main theme.
Right.
But I think I made the point back then, and I'll make it again now, is that his score, this is a year later, is so evocative.
Yeah.
It's so of the moment of what's going on with like Tangerine Dream and like synth music coming through, and the like, you know, like the disco going away and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's I mean, yeah, Blade Runner is just it's so iconic.
Yeah, I mean,
And the iconography in it is just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, just I mean, you say dystopian, I actually don't find it dystopian, and I mean that as a compliment. Because
Yeah.
when I think of just my block with a lot of sci-fi, unless it's Mad Max Fury Road, which kind of owns it, I'm tired of like the flaming cars and the
Yeah,
bandolero
yeah,
and like
I
water is
understand.
poison
Yeah,
and all this
right,
stuff, you know,
right.
like I think that, but I think I don't find I think Blade Runner is definitely bleak, but I don't find it dystopian because it's still LA, you know, like there's
Yeah.
still like
But I mean, those cityscapes with like the refineries
yes,
and
that's,
you know,
that is no, that you're right, that is dystopian.
Yeah, I feel like that's where I'm feeling that, and also, you know, the overcrowded city
Right.
and the, you know, having to build up in these giant towering
Yeah. No,
skyscrapers.
you're right. It's
Yeah.
dystopia. I guess what I'm trying to
But
say
it's
is,
not that sort. It's not that brand. It's
Yeah.
it's its own brand of dystopian. It's
Yeah,
not
and
the
it really
not
is
the
some-
wasteland like
Right.
You know.
right. I mean, Mad Max is cool because Mad Max did it, but we already had 3 Mad Max movies by then, or 2 by then.
Mhm.
I think what's interesting is that, yeah, I mean, it's again 2001,
Right.
Star Wars, Blade Runner. I mean, these are 3. I mean, but Blade Runner wasn't a hit.
No.
But Blade Runner, like even more so than The Shining, because The Shining at least was a decent box office hit. It did really well. Blade Runner didn't. And another book I'll recommend, The Future Is Now by Chris
Oh,
Nashawati.
yeah.
I think I mentioned that
Mhm.
last
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Just talks about the 8 movies that came out in that summer. Blade Runner's in there. But yeah, I mean, I've yet to see a vision of the future half as interesting as the one Blade Runner has presented, and that's
No, you're right.
almost 45 years ago.
It's super immersive, and everything is very textural and tactile, and it feels
Yeah.
lived in and real.
Yeah, and he uses real buildings. He uses
Yeah.
the Bradbury
Right.
building, and he uses other. Scott Frank in our '82 episode mentioned another building. You can listen to that episode because he used to be on the board that preserved that building. So he's using a lot of practical. My daughter took a field trip to the Bradbury building.
Oh, it's great.
She didn't know what the hell Blade Runner was though. So I'm like, you don't understand. I've never been there. I could just go downtown and like walk in. I've never done it.
Yeah.
Which has been in other movies like Wolf. It's used really
Wolf,
effectively there. It's not as great a movie as Blade Runner, but it's used very effectively in that movie.
And the Frank Lloyd Wright house
that's what it was. My friend. So my friend is on the
yes.
board. Scott Frank talked about the Frank Lloyd. He's like stayed in it overnight.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I've walked by it a million times because I used to live down the hill from it.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to get in.
Great choice. I mean, yeah, Blade Runner. It is on my top 30 list, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, we can go on and on about Blade Runner. Let me ask you this. I'm gonna cut this out.
Yeah.
What did you think of Blade Runner 2049?
I loved it.
I really liked it.
I thought it was great.
I saw it like 2 years ago. I avoided it. And then I watched it on like Netflix, and I was like, this is really
good.
Really good.
Yeah.
And it had so much going against it.
Yeah.
In fact, when it didn't make any money, I was kind of like, well, what did you assholes expect? You're like the first one nobody went and saw.
And then it became this huge cult favorite.
Yeah.
And now you're opening up that can of worms.
But they built the world in a really interesting way. It's a really good sequel. It's a really good Lego sequel. And beautifully, I mean, Villeneuve was a great choice for that.
Talk about production design and photography and the color script on that is like phenomenal.
Okay, I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah. No, I love it.
And I just created a segue for myself without even realizing it. With Villeneuve in a way. Because...
Well, hey Ed, what's your number 7?
So, my number 7 is The Living Daylights.
Ooh. Whoa. Okay. Controversial. All right.
Well, I'm gonna get into that.
All right.
So, the 1960s was definitely the best decade for James Bond because the only thing bigger than James Bond that decade was the Beatles. And they eventually intersected because McCartney obviously does Live and Let Die song.
Yeah, which is maybe my favorite McCartney song.
Yeah. So typical to the 80s, this was an incredible decade. There's 5 Bond movies in the 80s.
Yeah, it's a bunch.
Yeah, and probably the most in any decade. Certainly the last time they did that many. And these movies are outright sort of pissed on and dismissed. And all 5 of these movies are directed by a guy named John Glenn, who cut his teeth as an editor and second unit director on the franchise. He cut, The Ski Chase from Her Majesty's Secret Service. He filmed the famous ski jump in The Spy Who Loved Me. He shot the skydiving fight that opens Moonraker, which invented the tech that we still use to shoot skydiving in the sky to this day. Yeah,
amazing.
These guys invented the tech, the parachutes, the reserve procedures, the camera mounts. These guys came up with all that shit in 1979. And I think his first 3 Bond movies, one of which we've covered on this series already, I think his first 3 Bond films as a director are really great. I think that there's some really silly humor in those that give the haters like kind of a layup. But The Living Daylights was the first Bond movie starring Timothy Dalton, and he really lays the track for later on for Daniel Craig to run. I always tell people, if you like Daniel Craig, then you should go back and watch the 2 Timothy Dalton movies.
Interesting,
because he did it first.
I feel like Timothy Dalton is one of the least loved Bonds.
He's the least loved Bond, and it's a shame. And I'm going to use this platform I created for myself to tell you why. What's crazy is that this is the same creative team from the previous Bond movie, A View to a Kill, almost to a person. Same director, same writer, same producer, same composer, same DP, same production designer. Everybody is the same, but just by switching the leading man, it's like a whole new franchise because Dalton really wanted to go back to like Fleming and make it serious and move away from the camp. And it's to do that now, you'd have to not just switch the leading man, you'd have to switch like almost the entire creative team. And it just shows how in sync the Bond team was, that just by switching the leading man, they were able to like freshen up the entire series. And this is the Fleming's mystery, but this movie never gets too damp. It never gets too serious. It's still a Bond movie. It still moves like a Bond movie. It's still lush like a Bond movie. The pre-credit sequence here where Bond's introduced is the very best of all 25 movies.
Really?
Yes, it's about...
I don't remember what it was.
So it's on Gibraltar. I spotlighted it in our last Emperor episode.
Okay.
So it's on Gibraltar. It's like a war game scenario. Like they're playing like war games with paint. but
Oh,
a real
right. That's
assassin
right.
gets in and starts killing them.
Yeah.
And there's a chase that breaks out that's just really well done. There's a little rear projection, but it's still
Right.
real stuntmen. A lot of it's Dalton himself. He's not Tom Cruise, but he does get on top of a Jeep on a very narrow road and sort of hang off, and it is really convincing. So you should definitely, you can see that on YouTube, but you should see this whole movie. Um, and again, the pre-credit sequence of this is like really brief. It's like less than 10 minutes.
Mm.
Now they're like, the last
Yeah,
one
they're
was like
so
25
long.
minutes. I love the movie that follows this, License to Kill, if not as much as this one, but I feel like if Dalton had only done just this one, people would talk about it the way we talk about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the
Really?
only one that
Yeah,
Lazenby did,
right.
because it's the only one it has like this master. And I think that movie is a masterpiece. That's my second favorite of the entire franchise. But I think the fact that Dalton did this other one kind of took away, because he was supposed to do a bunch. But I think in any context, this is a total class act. I actually think this is a Bond movie that would appeal to people who aren't normally fans of the franchise, because this is where they take the misogyny out. So he sleeps with a lot fewer women because it was an AIDS consideration. You know, this is at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and he's not virginal in this or anything, but he pretty much just has one love interest, and it was a conscious effort to kind of, you know, not have him sleep with like 8, 10 women in one
Right.
movie. So there's a bit of a love story in this that's not pushed too hard. And I mean, Living Daylights, I think it's just, and this is the last Bond movie to have a John Barry score, and he really goes out on a high note because he starts using electronic 80s electronics. So he's constantly modernizing. You know, he's not just doing the old stuff. And I mean, yeah, obviously, as anybody who's listening to this podcast knows, I'm a huge James Bond fan, but The Living Daylights is the best Bond movie of the 80s and my number 7 pick for the
It
whole decade.
definitely has the best cello skiing scene in any movie I've ever seen.
But that's the only thing in the movie that's like, what's fascinating is that,
just,
no, but you're making it sound more broad than it is. Like that's like as broad as it gets.
Yeah.
But this movie has, yeah, I mean, there's a scene in this movie where Bond almost kills a guy in cold blood.
Yeah.
And it's totally credible that like he's going to do it. Like, and he doesn't go rogue in this, which I love. It's like everything he does is like on his boss's orders. He does one kind of a little bit roguish thing, because the next movie is him going totally rogue.
Right.
Because they've gone so far with that, where like Bond goes rogue. This time it's personal. But this, what I love is that like, everything he's doing is for King and Country.
Right.
Or Queen and Country in this case.
Right. Queen.
Yeah, it's still Queen.
Still Queen.
Yeah. In fact, the next movie it'll be King and Country.
It will.
Well, that's crazy, because Queen Elizabeth is the first Bond novel is written 14 months after Queen Elizabeth's coronation.
Oh my God.
So there's never been
a king.
There's never been a king until now.
Oh boy.
And there's a book that came out on His Majesty's Secret Service, which is about I forgot who wrote it, but it's about basically an assassination attempt during King Charles' coronation. It's kind of cool.
Interesting. Do we know who the next Bond is going to be?
We don't. So we recently covered.
Do you have a vibe?
I don't have a vibe. I have.
You would know. You're the guy.
We did a 1981 on For Your Eyes Only, which was the Bond movie for that year.
Yeah.
A movie I like very much, and I ended it by talking with Scott Frank, who's a huge Bond fan like myself. We kind of talked about there's guys I like for it. So Denis Villeneuve is going to be directing the next movie. That was my segue there. I think it's great hands. It's also being produced by David Heyman, who did all the Harry Potter movies and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Marriage Story.
Great.
So this is the first Bond movie not to involve the Broccoli's, which I was like grief-stricken over. But then as I heard this creative team was, and Stephen Knight's writing the script.
Okay.
So it's in really, really, really good hands.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. It's going to be a new Bond, so that's always a seismic. It's been 20 years since we've had a new guy in the role. There's guys I like. There's some guys are talking about I don't like. I don't know as far as who's going to get it. I don't know, but there are some. I actually would love it if it would be a person of color, Henry Golding or Reggie John Page, who are both British, and I think both of them would be really good. I kind of want to go back to maybe not Roger Moore tone wise, but like a little bit of a lighter tone. I don't mean like slapstick. I don't want to go as damp as we got. I think the Daniel Craig movies were great.
I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Daniel Craig.
But I want to get back to the fun.
They were quite gritty. Yeah.
I think we've taken the grit as far as we can take it. And Dalton is gritty.
Does everything have to be gritty?
That's what I'm saying. I think everything is too gritty in general. So I developed kind of a grit allergy. Like I really liked the most recent Superman movie, because it wasn't that.
I haven't seen it.
It's very
Yeah.
good. I think if Bond
Mhm.
dared to be fun, and I don't know, I think it's
I can get behind that. I can get behind
because
that.
Villeneuve did such an incredible job with Blade Runner, which I thought was a
Yeah.
fucking fool's errand. I thought they shouldn't have done it. It was a waste
I
of
was
time.
super worried about it.
And then I
Yeah.
saw it and I was like, you know what? This was worth it. This
Mhm.
was worth my time. And they approached him to do the last Craig movie, so like the Broccoli's wanted him to do. He's been in the mix
Okay.
to do other ones, so it's not such a crazy choice. And clearly, he wants to do it. So I think
All right, fingers crossed.
I
mean,
think he's in great hands.
He's in good hands.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm trusting him to pick the right guy for
Yeah.
the part. I gave you
Yeah.
mine too. I think Jack Lowden would be good also
Mhm, mhm.
from Slow Horses.
Yep.
But there's some names I'm hearing that I'm not that wild about. So Alan, what is your number 6 chronologically?
I'm dipping into John Hughes here with The Breakfast Club.
Great choice.
I struggled, and this is where the argument will debate with my wife. There was probably the most heated debate
Between this and Ferris?
between this and Ferris.
It's a tight race.
And-
Breakfast Club is fantastic.
And the only reason the reason for me that I felt like Breakfast Club kind of just edged out Ferris for me, is because you think of when you think of 80s movies, a lot of us think of like teen movies.
Right.
And for me, this is like the quintessential 80s teen movie.
Absolutely.
Like it deals with those archetypes that we all dealt with growing up
Yeah.
in such, I think, a honest and caring way. I feel like everyone could feel represented in that movie.
Absolutely.
And I just love the conceit of it, where you have these people from these disparate social groups forced into a reckoning, and coming out the other end realizing like, hey, we're all struggling. Being a teenager is hard no matter which way you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I think that it just barely edged Ferris for me on those grounds. And to me, it's kind of like John Hughes at his most firing on all cylinders in the teen movie genre
Yeah.
for that reason.
Yeah, I think it's a great movie. It would definitely, yeah. If Ferris is number 1, Breakfast Club is number 2.
Yeah.
Nipping at its heels.
I know it was splitting hairs between those.
Yeah,
two.
it's almost throw a dart. I think I'll get my one negative thing out of the way. It's funny because as we're talking about this, I just recorded Out of Africa,
Mm-hmm.
which aired this week, but it's 85, so I talked about Breakfast Club a little bit. Oh, because but the only thing about the Breakfast Club I don't like, and it's so annoying because it had such handles on it to lift it out, is what it. But the part I grew to dislike is when Emilio Estevez high
When he screams.
When he screams and shatters.
Yeah,
That's just so dumb. But have you seen
it's really
the
cartoony.
criterion of this?
No.
I highly recommend you pick it up because there's an hour of cut scenes.
Oh.
Most of which I see why he cut them out, but because he did this a lot where I know it's true of Planes, Trains. I don't know if it's true of Ferris. Where Planes, Trains, their first cut was 3 hours, and the movie that we have is like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it's a similar thing here. He cut a lot of stuff out, and it's really, and I think if you saw this movie, we're of the generation where things would play on like network TV and they would add scenes in to add more commercials and make it 3 hours instead of 2 hours. It's a lot of people kind of like turn their noses up to like, why is Criterion covering The Breakfast Club? But it's a really great presentation of the movie because there's an hour of cut scenes. And again, some are good, some aren't, but it's just fascinating to see like what he cut out, what he left in, what other stuff. Unto itself, a lot of the stuff that he cut out is really interesting. Like there's a line, I don't know, it always stuck out to me where it's in the sequence where they're kind of sneaking around and Allison, the Ali Sheedy character, like kind of gets really close to Vernon's office and he doesn't see her. Like she's kind of standing in front of it and Molly Ringwald says something like, she's nuts, but she's cool. And I love that line. I kind of wish they'd kept that in there. I mean, you see that in there, but I just like that line that like,
Also, Paul Gleason. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah.
Love
He
that guy.
played a lot of assholes
Yeah.
in the 80s, but
So brilliantly.
Yeah.
And like, and I will say, when I ran into Ali Sheedy at a restaurant in Manhattan, I was like, oh my God.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you talk to her?
No, I did. I was too
Oh.
afraid to. We were both waiting for tables at the same
So
restaurant
cool.
in the waiting area.
I saw the U.S. in a Vons in
Yeah.
Burbank where I lived. He did not look approachable. I don't think I would have approached him anyway. He did not look happy to be
In a Vons.
He was just like in a sweater, like shorts.
Is anybody happy to be in a Vons?
No, I wasn't happy to be there either. But it was really early when I lived here, because I lived there like the first 5 years I lived in LA, and this was like really. It's probably like that first flush of like famous people. I did not even think about talking, but yeah, it's also one of these movies where the older you get, the more you see in it. Like somebody pointed this out to me, and obviously, like as like an 8 or 9-year-old, I wouldn't have noticed this, but this is a great scene where they all have lunch. Like she has sushi, and the USFS has got like all this stuff because he's trying to bulk up, and like and then Ali Sheedy's lunch is really gross, and Anthony Michael Hall's is like very organized. But the thing I never realized is that Bender doesn't have any food.
Has no
He's
lunch.
food insecure.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle.
Yeah.
It's just like because I didn't know what that was. I didn't hear about that. I was just like, oh no, but this kid doesn't even have any lunch.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does such a great job of giving all 5 of them equal weight, and at different points, all 5 of them are like the asshole, or at least aggressive. Maybe the Ali Sheedy character isn't, but at least they're all like the aggressor or make an assumption. And I think he does such a great, in a weird, maybe not in a weird way. It's kind of like 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it's 5 Angry Kids, but I love.
It was the original title.
Yeah, it's the original title, but yeah, it's such a great. Yeah, I mean, it's. Obviously, I prefer Ferris to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you had just those 2 movies, if you just had Breakfast Club and Ferris, you'd have a real sense of who John Hughes was and his gift. I mean, Planes, Trains too. I don't want to go through.
I do love Planes, Trains is one of my favorites.
But it's such a different thing.
It's such a very different thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's about guys his own age.
Yeah.
So it's a different insight, and I think it's great that he kind of went that way too. But yeah, Breakfast Club is. I mean, yeah, it's such a great movie. And again, I think Breakfast Club is the beginning of like his ear for music. Like that Simple Minds song, and
the soundtrack in that is great.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a little bit of it in 16 Candles also, but yeah, Breakfast. Yeah, it's just, I mean, such a great movie. Prepared me for high school in some ways. In other ways,
terrified me.
Yeah, but in a weird way, I was sort of like, you and I went to the same high school, so we know each other from. I kind of like walked into high school being like, okay, I think I know which guy I am, and I don't think, I'm definitely Anthony Michael Hall in some ways. I'm definitely not Bender. I'm definitely not, But it was interesting. Yeah, so. Great pick.
Well, Ed, that brings us to number 6 for you.
Number 6.
And where are you?
All right. My number 6 is No Way Out.
Oh, I love that movie.
All right. So I've been talking all season long, including this episode, how we just don't have cool stuff like we had in the 80s. And on that tragic score, we don't have big screen thrillers anymore. Not that we only have them on streamers, and I'm not anti-streamer, but the problem is that the things made for streamers just feel cheaper, and they operate at like at best 70% strength. We would have a movie like this today, but it just wouldn't. The craft wouldn't be as high. I mean, this movie is shot by John Alcott, who shot The Shining.
Yes,
and he won an Oscar for Barry Lyndon, and he shot Clockwork Orange. In fact, this movie is the last movie John Alcott shoots.
Oh, really?
It's dedicated to him. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is his last movie. And this is my favorite Kevin Costner performance because it's for 2 or 3 reasons. One, and it's really early in his career. He does this and The Untouchables the same year, and this is like what breaks him. It's a really incredible 1-2 punch. And he was like already like kind of like sharking his way up.
He was on his way up.
He did Silverado, and because Lawrence Kasdan cut him out of Big Chill, but put him in Silverado, and off Silverado, he gets No Way Out. But Untouchables is released first because they wanted to see how Untouchables did. So they're shot in reverse order, which is really interesting. I didn't know that till I got a little older. But I like this performance best of all of his for 2 reasons. One, it's a real Hitchcock leading man performance. Yeah. Even though he's becoming a movie star, but he's still like this like tall, handsome leading man. And I think he has like an energy and an intensity in this movie that he's rarely matched since. Like he has like a
Yeah,
nervy energy, which
I
is just
agree with
not
that.
his persona.
No.
Because I think he became to varying degrees of success, almost like a Clint Eastwood type, like super cool, super like he wanted to be Eastwood and McQueen, and I think he can hit those notes sometime. But I just think this is his best performance, and I also think that the romantic chemistry he has with Sean Young in this.
Yeah.
Sean Young again, who we saw
Yeah.
in Blade Runner.
Yep.
This is also my favorite performance of hers. I
Love
think
Sean Young.
Sean Young got done really dirty by Hollywood,
She did.
and I know she had some issues, and I'm not going to get into that. But I think that she makes this character a real person. She brings like kind of a daffy, like wacky energy to this
Mhm.
that could have been annoying, but really works. It makes her a real person, and I think she brings like a looseness and like natural ease out of Costner that almost no other leading lady did except for Susan Sarandon in the very next movie, Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Like where
Right.
just he's looser and because I think Costner is something he kind of struggles with in a lot of his movies, even movies of his that I like. But yeah, I think sticking with Sean Young for a second. I mean, Blade Runner's obviously what she'll be remembered for because we already talked about.
It's so iconic.
It's iconic. I didn't know Blade Runner was on your list.
The styling on her is just like,
and the way they bring her back in 2049, which is incredible.
Yeah,
I thought that was the best de-aging or whatever the hell they did.
Yeah.
That just because I didn't know she was going to be in it. That was just chilling in the best possible way.
Mhm.
But I think she's just fantastic in this, and I don't think I can imagine anybody else from that era in this role. I've heard about some of the other women women I love who are sort of considered for this part, and I'm like, no, it's got to be Sean Young. I just think she makes this, she just makes this character a character.
She has the right energy for
She's
it.
the perfect energy, and she's got. I don't think they got along. It's like she and Harrison Ford didn't get along, but on screen, I think you see it. It works. Another actor in this movie that I really love is a guy named Will Patton, who still works and is knocked around for a long time. But I really feel like
I love that guy.
He's like a great Hitchcock villain.
He plays such a great creep.
He's such a great creep, and I really feel like he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor this year. And I think if this movie were to get made today, if it weren't on a streamer, I think he would break through because I think we're like honoring these kind of performances now. I think it's just an incredible villain performance. And again, this guy's worked. In fact, Costner makes him the bad guy in The Postman.
Yep.
And he's been in a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I think he's terrific in this. This is like I think the meatiest role, to my knowledge. This is like the meatiest role he was ever given. You might know this guy by sight, but Will Patton.
I just saw him in something again recently.
Yeah, he still works. He's a really good actor, but I feel like this is like just such a great part.
It's got a lot of great actors in it, though.
Yeah, and I haven't even gotten to.
You haven't even gotten to Hackman.
I was about to say the fact that I'm getting to Gene Hackman fucking fourth in this movie shows you how strong this cast is, and Hackman's really good in this too. But this is I talked about erratic paycheck Kane. This is erratic paycheck Hackman. So this is a month after Superman 4.
Oh my god.
And Kane had done Jaws 4 a year before Dirty Rotten Scoundrel. So just to show what was going on.
What else was happening?
But what's interesting, Costner tells this story. I think he's like on the Rich Eisen show or something. He's talking about the story how like Hackman had said to him, I've been making a lot of I'm going through a divorce. I've been making a lot of questionable decisions career-wise, but you fighting for what you wanted in this scene, because Costner got an argument with the director about like wanting to block a scene a certain way, and Hackman told him like watching you kind of push for what you want kind of reminded me of how I was, and and then a year after this, Hackman does Mississippi Burning, which is great. He's nominated for best actor. And then like the paycheck period kind of goes until Unforgiven, and then the back nine of his career. Yeah. They're not all great movies, but he's back to his strength. Like he's back to doing premium things with good directors.
Back in fighting
condition. Like he's but he's really good in this, and this is like a good use of his gravitas, his reputation, and he's really dialed in. And this is. I mean, I wouldn't put it as like one of the great Hackman performances, but I do think this is one of his best movies.
No, but to your point, I've always really loved this movie because of the twist. It's one of those things that when the first
Amazing.
time I saw it, I was not expecting it.
No, this is one of the
And
great twist endings. We won't spoil it here.
no, won't spoil it here,
This
but
is
like
one of the great
I
twist
always,
endings.
always really respected that movie for pulling off a twist like that
Yeah.
that you just did not see coming.
Yeah.
And
And it plays fair.
it plays,
It's threaded.
it
There
is
are
threaded.
clues
There
if you're
are
paying
clues,
attention.
but I've always been a huge fan of this movie. It's
Yeah.
always been one of my favorite Kevin Costners.
Yeah, and I want to mention the director Roger Donaldson,
Yes.
who's a really solid journeyman. To give you an idea, I don't know if it's a movie before this, but he does The Bounty, and then a year after this, he does Cocktail.
Oh, yeah.
But he also does a really cool movie called The Bank Job with Jason Statham. Costner hires him to do 13 Days. You ever seen The Bank Job?
I don't know if I ever saw
It's
The
like
Bank
2008. It's not like a Jason Statham, like him cracking heads open. It's a true story.
Yeah.
It's like early 70s.
Okay.
They have to rob like a safe deposit box because there's like blackmail information involving the royal family.
Interesting.
It's a really cool movie. It's Jason Statham and like what's her name? Saffron Burrows. And
Okay.
yeah, cool movie. But yeah, No Way Out is probably the biggest influence on me as a writer of anything else in this on this list, because I really love movies where a character is in a jam kind of is of his own making. And I think that this is like one of those rare mysteries. I said this about Memento, and I think it's true here. This is like one of those rare mysteries where every minute lives. It's like every minute of this thing is pulsating with tension. And again, Costner plays that so well, and it's not something he's called on to do after this, or he
he's not
doesn't
super
put himself
known for. No.
and he's not. And again, this is just so Hitchcockian in the best ways, because like you have as an audience member all this information, and it's just the jam that he's in. That's why I really love this television show The Shield, because that was like an entire series about that.
Yeah.
It was just like all these characters were just like in a fucking mess that that they created. I mean, those characters are less sympathetic than this one, but yeah,
they're digging the hole while they're standing in it.
Yeah.
You know,
So I mean,
constantly.
No Way Out. I don't know how known it is. I know that the sex in the back of the limo scene was a very immediately sort of like
very steamy
thing. But I think Chris Ryan over at the Rewatchable said describe this movie as a Hitchcock thriller that fucks, and I think that's just the best. That's just the best description of it.
I'll take it. Roger Donaldson also directed the music video for Kokomo.
Did he really?
Just just looking it up here.
So that's our show. Next week, Alan returns, and we're gonna give our top 5 best movies of the 1980s. Till then, looking forward to looking back.